Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Welcome, everybody, to our latest episode of our podcast, an extension of SoundHeart Counseling, a beautiful organization that my wife and I co-founded almost 15 years ago to help Muslims and everybody, the world at large, when it comes to mental health issues, with marriage issues, with family issues, personal issues, anything that people are going through. We offer counseling and coaching and all different kinds of services for people to help, Muslim families stay strong, Muslim individuals stay strong. My name is David McCarthy. I'm a mental health clinician and co-founder of SoundHeart Counseling along with my wife.
Hi, this is Nawal Ibrahim Al-Hawsawi. I'm a co-founder of SoundHeart Counseling. So a little bit about me. I'm a dual board certified marriage and family therapist and mental health counselor. Very passionate about families. I call myself familist. And our goal at SoundHeart is to really help families be strong. This is something we feel passionate about, and that's why we come up with our unique approach to marriage counseling, where it's actually based on the Islamic teaching of having, two people representing the couples who are going through the counseling process. So my husband and I together, we work together as a team to help couples overcome whatever challenges they're going through.
Yeah, traditionally, the Quranic application of marriage counseling was that a representative from the husband's side would support him, basically, and a representative from the wife's side would support her. And then if the two of them wanted a resolution, then Allah would facilitate that resolution. Today, in the modern world, especially with a lot of converts, new Muslims, people, all different kinds of situations, it's hard for them to bring representatives from their family. Also, a lot of representatives are not really trained and not really very good at doing these kinds of things anymore, dealing with the modern issues of marriage. So we kind of step in and provide that role. So I usually am kind of the advocate for the husband. My wife is the advocate for the wife. And we try to see things from each other's perspectives as we help them navigate through marriage counseling.
Yeah, and we proudly help couples come from very difficult places, but also we had our own challenges in the process. And I wouldn't say that everyone we were able to help. Sometimes the help will look different to different people. But back to our topic of today, we're feeling, a topic that a lot of people probably feel very strongly for or against. And I think our discussion today could maybe stir up some opinions and trigger some emotions. But we have a disclaimer before we start. We're not giving any fatwa. We're not taking any religious stand on this matter. But we want to address it as professionals, as professional Muslim, because this issue is impacting Muslim families every day. So let's have a conversation about the topic.
Yeah, this is just our opinion as mental health clinicians who've been in this field for a while and done marriage counseling for a while, and as people who have lived in the United States and lived in the Middle East. So we have a variety of different experiences. But yeah, we're not trying to give fatwa. We're not trying to tell people what's halal and haram. We're just trying to give people good advice based off what we've seen and how we deal with this in a professional nature inside of our practice. But the issue comes up. And we're talking about Muslims in the United States here, or in England or Australia, Western countries, who come to us either because someone is thinking about practicing polygamy, or basically what's referred to as taking another wife, or they've already done it, and they're dealing with the consequences basically of it, kind of the fallout. Oftentimes it's the wife reaching out because she feels hurt by the situation. She's not sure if she wants to stay or not. And, basically we try to counsel people through it. But we want to go over basically the idea of, is this the best practice for people to do in a place like the United States?
Yeah. So I would like to start with reciting a verse from Surah An-Nisa. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وإن خفتم ألا تقسطوا في اليتامى فأنكحوا ما طاب لكم من النساء مثنى وثلاث ورباع فإن خفتم ألا تعدلوا فواحدة أو ما ملكت أيمانكم ذلك أدنى ألا تعولوا.
And that verse has been translated as, and if you fear that you shall not be able to deal justly with the orphan girls, then marry other women of your choice, 2 or 3 or 4. But if you fear that you shall not be able to deal justly with them, the only one or the slaves that your right hands possess, that is near to prevent you from doing injustice.
So how polygamy usually would be practiced in America? Can you...
The stories that we've heard and people we've encountered and whatnot, basically it's that you have the first wife, and then after that, when the man wants to marry a second wife, this marriage is, off the books, basically. That, he has to have an imam or someone like that marry them because he's not going to go to court because obviously it's illegal in this country. So an imam or someone like that is performing a marriage, Islamically, as they say.
So my question to you, how can a man be just in America, marrying more than one wife?
I mean, given these circumstances, I don't think it's possible because, number one, you get into areas about like legal rights that people have, right for health insurance and visitation rights inside of hospitals and parental rights with children and things like that. And the way that the law is structured, a man can't share his health insurance from his job with a second wife that's not legally his wife. As we know in Islam, a woman is not required to work. So the only way she can get health insurance is if she maintains a job, which she's not required to do. Otherwise, she goes on, Medicare. It has to have like government assistance provide for her health insurance because her husband can't give it to her. So I mean that right off the bat, you're dealing with like a lot of potential injustice just from the working situation.
Yeah, healthcare, that can be an issue. But what other way that, marrying more than one wife in this country will by itself create a, a situation of injustice that is hard to overcome?
I mean, there's the social stigma behind it. If you look at, in Saudi Arabia or Egypt or places like that, if a man has more than one wife, people don't look at the first wife or the second wife like in a strange way. Like they don't think like, oh wow, what happened to her? Like, they understand, like even though it's not common, like it's done, so it's not really a big deal. But here, there's automatically like a lot of questions, like, oh, so was he like cheating on her with the second wife, or why did the first wife stay, or is the second woman really okay with being basically like the second class wife? Like, so there's no way in a social aspect that he can really put both women into a completely fair, just situation.
Something that came to my mind when you were talking about insurance, I was thinking about the benefits like retirement, also in addition to all the benefits you get from the job. So how could that be shared?
It can't be shared. I mean, like, the benefits that somebody gets at work, and let's face it, today, we talked about this before, the job has basically replaced the tribe, like in this country, where, back in like the Prophet Prophet's time in Arabia, people had tribes, and the tribes would look after them. If somebody got sick, if somebody, got injured, they couldn't work, like the tribe would look after them. But today, people don't have tribes looking after them. They have jobs. But there's laws around, how you get benefits from these jobs. And a lot of these laws say that you can only pass these benefits to your spouse or your children. So if you have like a woman on the side, like, doesn't apply. And that's all that a second wife can legally be in this country.
Well, what if, it's a good point that, the jobs is almost your tribe, and, that's how you get benefits. What if a man said, okay, none of the wives will get benefits in case if I die, none of them will get anything. So what about this then? What if he said, okay, nobody's registering my benefits and that's how I'm going to be equal?
I mean, is that justice? Is that justice in this country, basically to withhold benefits from people? To say, well, I'm going to make it fair by disadvantaging everybody. Like, so everybody's now at a disadvantage. So then, well, they're even, but I mean, is that justice? Like with a capital J in the big sense? Like, okay, so, one wife, she didn't get, she didn't get one thing, so I'm going to take it away from the other wife. Like, I don't think that that's really a just situation. Today, everybody knows what it's like. If people don't have health insurance, whatnot, they don't have the same access to medical care and whatnot. So they're not in a great situation. I don't see how putting people into that situation is beneficial. To have to rely on like state health coverage and things like that, and not having, the same access to doctors or healthcare.
And I'm also concerned about the moral aspect of things, where some of these sisters who are being put in that predicament where they're not legally married, but they're Islamically married, now they have children. According to the system, they're single mothers. So how could a Muslim sister put herself in a position where, while you go you apply for benefits and that kind of stuff, people look at you as a single mom having children out of wedlock, and that's something, people look at you in a way that is not positive. Remember the story of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam when he was walking at night with one of his wife, and it was his wife, and the Sahaba noticed him, and it was dark. I think it was Fajr actually, and he immediately said, "This is my wife. This is so and so, and she's my wife," because really important to clear any doubt, like when it's especially in these relationships, that it's no, this is a real marriage and this is real wife. So don't think I'm doing things that's not.
Yeah, like legitimacy
Yeah.
is an important part in Islam. That what we have legitimacy in what we do. We don't like sleep around. We don't have like girlfriends. We don't have like, weird illegitimate kids and relationships that we're not supposed to have and things like that. And that's all it will ever be in society. And building off the idea of like, legally this is like a single mother. What happens if somebody gets divorced? They don't, and if it's the second wife, they don't have rights for the divorce payments. They don't have the claim on the husband assets. And Muslims can't just be all pie in the sky about this. Like, oh well, they're not going to get divorced. They're in love. Muslims get divorced all the time. They're just normal people. But in the situation with the second woman, if the husband gets rich and famous while he's married to her, she's entitled to some of that money. She's taking care of the kids. This is what the laws of the country say. But she's not going to get it because, like, on paper, well, she was just like his side chick, basically. Like, she doesn't have any rights over the money he earned when he was married, quote unquote, married to her.
Right. It's a really legal issue because this is the law of the land, and a lot of Muslim members of the community, they think it's okay to break the law of the land, but the system is set up in this way for a reason. It's set up in a way where when there's divorce, there's things that happen after the divorce legally to ensure that the kids will be taken care of, the mom will be taken care of. But this is not happening in this situation.
Yeah, like there's going to be some people out there who be like, well, why does the woman need all this stuff? Why does she need half of what the man earns, whatnot? In Islam it says all he needs to do is provide for her needs. You can give her a bag of rice and put a roof over her head, and she's good to go. I mean, provide for someone's needs has changed a lot in the modern world. So if someone gets divorced, they can't. Muslims today, by and large, they can't just like go back to their father's house, go back to the tribe, expect to be taken care of. Like, again, a woman has the right in Islam not to work if she doesn't want to. But we can't just assume her brother or her father is going to take care of her in this situation. So should she end up homeless? Should she end up on the street because she entered into a marriage thinking she does the right thing and it doesn't work out and she got divorced and she's left with nothing? Is that like a just state? Is that okay to have people put into that situation? Because somebody thought, well, it's okay, I can practice polygamy, I can marry all these women, and let consequences be damned afterwards. If we get divorced, well, I guess that's on them.
Right, and because what about the kids though? Because what if there are kids involved? They didn't ask to be born to this situation, and now either their mom have to go get a job, which means someone else is going to be raising them because she's not there, or put them in. I don't know. Like the options are just not favoring a woman in this situation or the kids.
Yeah, I mean that's a question that we've talked about a lot. Is that what's in it for the woman? Like in a bigger sense, okay, yeah, she wants to get married. Okay,
But
maybe she's single and she wants to get married.
Okay. The second wife.
Yeah, she wants to get married. Okay, but people in the past they talked a lot about like, oh, well, there after war there might be a shortage of men and there's just not enough people around to marry, so the women don't have enough, so they have to marry. Okay, is that really the situation today? I mean, honestly, yes, true. Every Muslim sister wants to be married. I'm sure every Muslim man wants to be married. Are we really in a situation where like there's not enough men around that, this sister has to marry someone who's already married? That's
And all
really
these
the best
orphan
option?
ladies walking around with no.
Yeah, like are we really
orphans?
Yeah, I mean, or widows and things like that. I mean, we don't see this situation occurring. I mean, this is not like how it's really, in our experience, how it's really practicing in America. People who have more than one wife, they're not marrying widows, they're not marrying orphans. They're marrying somebody else that, whatever they're attracted to, or they meet, or they become like friendly with, and things like that. But it's not this idea that there's out of this great need for the situation. And like, honestly, why wouldn't that woman be better off marrying somebody who is not married? I mean, if it's funny today in the past, they talked about all these orphan girls, orphan widowed women, things like that, not enough men. Today, there's a lot of brothers who can't get married. Like, it's actually probably a bigger issue today of men wanting to get married and they can't get married than it is women, at least in this country.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think another concern when you think about middle class America, which a lot of the Muslims belong to the middle class America. How many men can say I can 100% provide for my wife 100% without her contribution? Yeah. How many just in the middle class America? Usually it's very rare because the wife, even for one household, will need to work just to help.
Just to pay the mortgage.
Yeah, really, just a little, because one income for middle class America today is just not enough. Okay. And let's say if she has to work a little bit to help with that, then he goes and get a second wife. So, where is that to be able to provide? You're not even providing for the first one because she has to help you a little bit. And now you're getting this because Islamically, if you're not able to provide, you're not even permitted to get married in some of the opinions in the school of thought.
Let's go. You don't have enough. I mean, again, an issue that's not really talked about enough in the United States or England and whatnot is that Islamically, a wife does not have to work. And the husband cannot pressure her to work or make this like a condition or anything like that on her.
Or coercion.
Or exactly, coerce her into. If she chooses to work, fine. It's okay. But also she's entitled to keep all of her money, which means she does not have to pay the mortgage payment, pay the internet bill, pay the light bill, buy the groceries with any of this money. And people don't say, well, in America, it's different. We a lot of people trot out this. It's different. You got to have 2-income households. That's the way it's designed. Okay, fine. If women buy into that, great. But I mean, where's the same people with the argument if they want to marry a second wife? Well, in America, it's different. I thought America's different, right? If you expect your wife to help pay some of the bills, well, okay, that's because this is America, right? Well, in America, people don't marry more than one woman either.
Well, it says clearly in Quran, وَلْيَسْتَعْفِفَ الَّذِينَ لَا يَجِدُونَ نِكَاحًا. So if a man cannot afford to get married, then he just have to,
be patient.
Yeah,
until he can afford it.
Right, because especially today in America, it's not just getting a wife, but also the other consequences that could happen. Like now you have children and how expensive childcare is. So we put in a situation where, we need the government assistance for a lot of things where, because the way the system is.
No, correct. And there's very few men out there that have so much money, but they actually, because we're talking about if one wife has a house, the other wife has the same house. We're talking about then, like everything is equal. And again,
paying from A to Z.
If one wife has a car, the other one has this. There's very few men out there that have that kind of money. We're talking, Donald Trump money or something like that. You're really, really, really elite wealth.
Yeah.
But they can actually buy all this same stuff for two women. It's not just like, hey, I want another wife. We got a spare bedroom in the basement. I can put her down there. It's cool. Like, that's not justice. That's not how even polygamy is practiced in other countries, like in Saudi Arabia, Egypt. Men build another house for their wives. They don't just stick them, in like the guest bedroom.
Yeah, I saw some sisters, unfortunately, they have to become hustlers, will sell food and try to kind of find ways to make ends meet where they're married and, the husband is having multiple women, but the money is just not enough.
You know, I hear a lot of Muslim brothers say, well, marrying more than one wife is the sunnah. Marrying, I want to practice the sunnah. It's good. You can't tell me this bad thing. But okay, if you want to be Mr. Sunnah, okay, out there, mashallah, but show me how you're actually doing this the way the Prophet ﷺ did this. The majority of cases that I've experienced, heard about, is either the man was basically having an affair. He met somebody. He was fooling around. Whatever he was doing something inappropriate with a woman's on his wife. And then he decides, well, I'm going to marry her. And that way it'll be legitimate, as it won't be an affair anymore. That's not the sunnah. Or, he is doing it behind his wife's back. Okay, he wasn't cheating, but he went out and married somebody in the masjid with some imam, like not where they go. And then 2 years, 3 years, 10 years later, his wife finds out that he has another wife. That's not the sunnah either. And, if you want to practice the sunnah, what did the Prophet ﷺ do? He announced all of his marriages. He was upfront with everybody. He had nothing but pure intentions. He was marrying widows. He was marrying people that were,
different tribes
to make alliances and whatnot. So, he had the greater good of like the whole ummah in mind here. I've yet to meet a man who has the greater good of the ummah in mind in America when he says he wants to get married to another wife. So if you want to say this is the sunnah, okay, well then follow the whole sunnah, not just a little piece of it that says, oh, he had more than one wife. Okay, well, he also, his sunnah is bigger than just he married a lot of women. Sallallahu
Alaihi Wasallam. That's a good point as well, because when you think about it, actually, in America, it's almost impossible to say there is a situation that will lead to marriage without things being in the gray area.
Yeah.
A little bit in the gray area.
Islamically, halal, haram, gray area.
Like this, you meet and, are you supposed to lower your gaze? Are you supposed to have this kind of conversation with this person at this time? Are you supposed even to be talking to her or talking to her wali? And how this, human connections and relationship, can grow until like, what? I think I want to get married, It's very different. So growing up in Saudi Arabia, that doesn't usually happen because of the arranged marriages and people just go straight to the door. Hey, knock, knock, I'm here to propose because I want to get married to a second wife. And everybody knows, his wife knows, usually. And, at least, even when he's going about it, he's going through the wali. It's not like talking to the woman.
We're talking about a man is talking to another man.
Right.
Okay? Like, again, show me a brother in the United States here who he starts off his second marriage journey by talking to another man. Not talking to the woman he wants to marry, talking to her father or her brother, because that's how it is like in Arabia.
Right.
If a man wants to marry, he approaches first the girl's father or brother, her wali, and says, hey, I've heard you have a daughter or a sister that's available in marriage. I'm interested in marriage. What do you think is her wali? Show me a situation where this is happening. And that's what you talk about. I've yet to hear about one. I've yet to hear about this happening this way in the United States. And what is happening is haram situations, men and women being alone together, gray area situations, where people are men and women are talking to each other and they're not married, and they're in an inappropriate situation.
Have these emotions get involved, and why not get that person. So because that's human nature to get to the next level once you get emotionally attached to a person. So that makes a lot of sense. Also, another thing that's really different, from Saudi Arabia, in America, how people practice it, usually if a man wants to take a second wife, he will do something called radwa. And radwa is such a beautiful gesture where he gives the wife very expensive gift. It could be literally tons of gold or fancy car or buy her house in her name. Something really expensive just to show respect. Like you still number one, you still appreciated, you still respected. Something absolutely expensive that's like wow. And it's not because the woman is materialistic. It's not because the woman is gonna get paid off to be okay. It's just a sign of respect. Like this is how much you means to me, and I'm going to get married with your blessings, and I know this is going to be tough on you, but I want to show respect, and this is what I'm going to do. And because, there's no woman will say, I'm not going to breastfeed my children unless I get paid. But why, that's that right where mom who are nursing, they get also that financial allowance in mentioning, in Quran. It's not because they want the money, but it's a gesture.
Because money is a sign of respect, whether we like it or not. It's not about well, my wife's not materialistic. It's not about that. It's about honoring traditions and respect. Why do you give gold when you get married and stuff like that traditionally? Yeah. Again, it's not because, my wife, she needs all this bling bling. She loves it. It's not. It's because you're honoring tradition. Honoring tradition is very important when you do something. If people want to talk about, I'm a Muslim, we have a tradition, we have a culture, I want to honor that, I want more than one wife. Okay, well, honor it in the way that it's done by the Muslims, not your own innovation. I want to do it the American way. I got a girlfriend on the side, I'm going to marry her. No Muslim does that in any legitimate sense anywhere in the world.
Yeah.
Even today, people want to, try to say like, well, I wanted to go to the wali, but she doesn't have a wali because she's a convert and her dad hates Islam. So okay, I'll tell people, did you go to the imam of the masjid? Did you start with him? Because generally speaking, a lot of what people in America do is if a woman doesn't have a wali, the imam of the masjid that she prays in is her wali. And again, I never hear anybody say, oh yeah, I went to the imam of the masjid. Because let's be honest, brothers, like men, when they're seeking another wife, they're seeking another wife because of their desires. That's just the truth. They want more than one woman. It's not because they want to follow the sunnah, the honor what the prophet did. It's not because they see someone in a disadvantaged situation, they're recently widowed or whatnot. Again, is there 1% who did this? Maybe so. But I'm not speaking to them. I'm talking about the 99% of the stories and the people I've encountered. And it's people following their desires. They like to have more women than just one. And they're just going about this in the wrong way.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is really important to talk about in our community because we're not having conversation about it. This decision has a, big impact on everybody involved. So when we're talking about, the Radwa is a tradition, someone can say, well, it's a tradition overseas. It's not a tradition here. But why is it a tradition, though? Why is that established there? Because not every woman will accept the Radwa. There will be those women who say, like, you know what, I'm out. I don't care about the Radwa, I'm out. And it's also accepted in Saudi Arabia. That's a woman, they're just not, going to do it. But usually because how men go about it, it usually, I would say, for most women, kind of like work out, because how men go about it, showing respect.
In a place like Saudi Arabia, where we both lived and we're familiar with the culture, an important point you brought up is that in the majority of situations, not all, but the majority, if a man wants to take a second wife, either the first wife accepts this and gives him her blessing, or she divorces him. There's a very rare percentage of women who don't give their blessing and also don't divorce the man. So you're talking the majority of the cases. The man does this either with his first wife's blessing to do so, or the first wife is out and he's basically just divorcing and remarrying.
Yeah,
I've yet to see a situation, again, in the United States, really, that in my experience with people, where the first wife gives their blessing to this. It's usually something that's being forced upon them, either because the man did it behind her back, or it's basically like, deal with it. Like, if you want to divorce me, go ahead, but it's not going to look good for you, so it's better you stick around.
Yeah, it's a good point, especially when we think about the system inside is set up differently because a woman has, a tribe, has a family. She can always go back to her father's house. She can always, and a lot of them, they have this dowry where if, in case they get divorced, they also can get the divorce payment. So financially, there's not a lot of decision making for a lot of the women. It's like, you know what, this is not working for me, or, this might work. But when you think about it here in America, where finances is a big part of the decision. The wife could be someone who decided to devote herself to be a home taker, and that's what she did full time. And she's been off the job market for so long, thinking about leaving is not an option.
Yeah, exactly. So a lot of women, if they're in the situation, they're stuck in America. They're stuck in this situation, which by itself is injustice. because they know they don't have the financial means to support themselves. They don't have the resume anymore to go out and get a job. They don't want to work at Burger King. They'd like to have a job with that they feel provides them with dignity, but they don't have the qualifications because they've been a homemaker, and so they're stuck basically. It's like, well, I have to stay with this man because I don't have anywhere else to go. And this is not Islam.
Right. I think sometimes, when the women feel like they have to work to support the husband financially, there's some kind of coercion in that, because that's expected. And when a man in that predicament where the woman is helping him financially, I just don't understand how getting a second wife will make that situation just.
There's coercion, basically. There's people selling people in this idea, or basically tacitly forcing people into this idea. And coercion is a very major thing in Islam. Allah says, "La ikraha fid din," that you can't force people even in religion. If you can't force people in religion, how can you force them in anything else? And coercion can be very subtle. Think about the famous story of Sayyidina Umar ibn Khattab when he was the Khalifa of the Muslims. He was their ruler. He once met a Christian woman, an older woman who came to him with a need, and he addressed her need, and he also invited her to Islam innocently, simply because he just wanted to do da'wah and invite her to Islam, and she declined, and he left, and she left. But then afterwards, he got very, very upset with himself, and the other Sahaba saw that he seemed like upset, and they asked him what's wrong, and he said, I worry that I was coercing her to accept Islam when I invited her because I'm the Khalifa and I have this position of authority. And they said, well, don't worry, actions are by intention. So if you didn't have the intention to do that, then you didn't, and you'll be judged by your intention. And he kind of relaxed a little bit, but he was so worried even about the slightest bit of coercion, of forcing someone who was not even a Muslim at that time to do something. He was so concerned about coercing anybody that it caused him, a state of unrest.
Right, because he actually, it was just a suggestion. He didn't say, I want you to do this. He just gave her an invite, and she said, politely declined. But, he remembered that she has a need. Yeah, and, right. I met her need. I gave her what she asked for, but I'm afraid because, I gave her that. She feel like she owe me something or coerced her to something. So when you think about this, when it comes to consent, and it's a big debate here in America, we're talking about consent. Coercion, as you said, is very subtle. Some women, they kind of seem like maybe consenting, but are they really consenting?
Yeah. Are they in a position to consent, really? Because, again, they feel like they're between a rock and a hard place. If I say no, he's going to divorce me, and then I'm screwed. I can't go out and get a decent job.
Or
where am I going to live? Yeah, I'm going to have to go to work, put my kids in daycare. I don't want to put my kids in daycare. I want to raise my kids myself. So I guess I have to say yes. I don't like it. So, for men out there, you really have to think about, is your wife in a position to really consent to this situation openly and honestly? It's a big issue in America about consent. We understand, like in this country, some people are not in a position to give consent. Children are not in a position to give consent. The mentally ill are not in a position to give consent. The elderly are not, and sometimes are not in a position to give consent.
Your supervisees, your inmates.
That's right.
People that you have power or authority over.
If a Muslim works in a prison, for example, like as a chaplain or whatnot, the people that he is administering services to in the prison, they actually, by law, cannot give consent. Correct. Because the employees have power over them. Yes. So he cannot take advantage of them in any way. He can't form like a romantic relationship with people in the prison, right, because this is considered a relationship without consent. So honestly, again, when you're talking about in Arabia, if a woman says, I don't like this, she goes back to her father's house in almost all situations and in almost all situations that arise. And so in this situation, she's in a position to say yes or no. She knows she can do this. But in this country, where's she going to go? In most situations, where's she going to go if she says, I'm out? Some women will just get up and leave them. Mashallah, good for them. But now, they have to deal with the consequences of that, and divorce, usually there's a winner and there's a loser.
Right. And that's when there's legal marriage to begin with.
Yeah.
But when there's no even legal marriage to begin with, that's a big issue. And one of the biggest concern I'm having with this situation is that the law of the land says it's illegal.
Yeah.
It's illegal in the United States of America and many Western countries to practice multiple wives. It's not legal. So for people who want to adhere to the Islamic teachings, why not move to a country where this is permissible? Why you want to break the law? And why some women want to go along for that?
Yeah, correct. I mean, do you have a good reason to break the law? I mean, you'll hear people say, "Oh man, this is the Kufar's law, man. This is non-Muslim law. It doesn't apply to me and whatnot." It's like, okay, but the law still applies to you whether you like it or not. If you don't believe that it should be haram to drive over the speed limit, it doesn't matter if you believe it is or not,
or
because
get a car insurance.
or buy car insurance because you don't believe that insurance is permissible or whatnot, or it's dhulm, it's oppression. Well, guess what? They will still put you in jail if you drive without insurance, or you will still get a ticket if you drive over the speed limit. And if you don't like it, then leave. Like that's the only alternative to it. Because if you want to say, I'm going to act in defiance of the law, well, you can end up doing injustice to yourself.
And injustice to the community, because when, in some situations where they live a certain lifestyle, like married Islamically but not legally, and having babies were considered like almost having babies out of wedlock, and qualifying for benefits, that's even halal benefits that you're qualifying, because this is false premise. You complete that application being single. It's true you're not legally married, but Islamically you're married, but this is you lied, and based on this lie you're getting a lot of financial benefits. You're getting health care. You could qualify for housing. You could qualify for a lot of things that you're taking that away from someone who actually in real predicament. They don't have a man there, and they actually need that, but they can't because there's so much money to share with everybody. Not everybody will get it, and some people have to get less.
And people in this world, they move for less. They don't like a law. Like, okay, they live in a place that says you can't homeschool your kids. It's illegal. They'll move. They'll move and they'll say, I'll go live in a different state, or I'll go live in a country or whatnot that allows this or facilitates this easier. People move for less reasons. People don't want to pay too high of a sales tax. They'll leave New York. Sales tax is too high. Don't want to live in New York. I want to find a state where there's low sales tax or no sales tax. People move for less. They move because they get a better job. Oh, they're hiring in this place.
Yeah.
They're not hiring that place. They'll up and move. So honestly, like, if you feel that strongly that you need to be in a position to have more than one wife, get up and move. Like, move to a country where there's a lot of countries that you can move to. Pakistan, you can move to Egypt, you can move to Saudi Arabia, you can move to Africa. You can move and live there and not do injustice to anybody. So, like, honestly, why is that a problem? Well, I might lose my job and something like that here. It's like, okay, well, everybody's got to make decisions in their life. But the number one decision that I feel people should make is don't do injustice to anybody.
Yes. I think also, what about the kids? We got to think about the kids here, because in these situation where they're not legally married, I worry about the health care, how the kids are getting benefits, how the kids are getting health insurance. Do they have to go with the government Medicaid insurance, where a lot of practitioners are just like, oh, you have this insurance, don't call me.
Or even just that they're like living a lie. Like, oh yeah, daddy's got another woman, but we can't call her his wife publicly because we don't want to get in trouble. We don't want daddy to go to jail for polygamy. So it's like, who's this other one? Your dad's like, oh, that's his girlfriend that he sees sometimes. I mean, like, why would you want to put your kids in that situation? Or do they want to like be like, oh no, he's married to two women? It's like, oh, is that allowed? Is that legal? And they gotta put on their lawyer hat and explain like, well, it's not illegal. I mean, it's illegal, but the way he's doing it, he's not filing his taxes for her. So he's like, why put your kids in that situation? Kids in Saudi Arabia or Egypt or whatnot, they're not in that situation. They just say, yeah, my dad has two wives. Okay, it's okay. No further explanation needed.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, think this is like a perfect solution, but they don't really understand the long-term impact of this to everybody. But I want to bring the story of Sayyidah Fatima radiallahu anha when she heard that her husband, Sayyidina Ali bin Abi Talib radiallahu anhu, was thinking about getting married. Actually, somebody told her that he actually proposed to the daughter of Abu Jahl, and there was engagement in the process. When she found out, she got really upset. So she went to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, her father, to complain to her father about something that's very upsetting for her. And the way she set the stage for that conversation, she said, "Your people are talking about you not getting angry for when things happen."
Happen to your daughter.
Yeah,
you're not getting angry over someone doing something to your daughter.
Yeah. So and then she told him, and of course, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was able to address it swiftly with Ali bin Abi Talib. He said, "Fatima is my daughter, and she's part of me. And what hurt her, hurt me. And what harmed her, harmed me." And that was the end of it. That the engagement was broken, although that daughter of Abu Jahl was Muslim. She was an orphan. She definitely needed to get out of that, shade by marrying someone in the status of Ali bin Abi Talib. But because feelings are real, feelings are valid, and when a woman feel upset about her husband getting a second wife, that's valid. That's acceptable. That's something we need to be okay with. She's not jealous or insecure or has pride or ego or all that. We can't say all this about Sayyidah Fatima. She's a wife who just said, "No, I don't want my husband to get a second wife." And that was valid, and that engagement was broken. And Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anhu never tried to get a second wife, not just during the life of the Prophet, because he passed away, but even after his death, he didn't until she passed away.
Yeah, exactly. People's feelings are real, and breaking someone's heart is a real action that Muslims shouldn't do. I mean, when somebody says like, "Oh, my wife, she'll get over it," I mean, would they adopt the same attitude themselves? Imagine if they're at work and someone stole all their money. Would they say, "Oh, you'll get over it. You'll get another job. You'll get over it. Time heals all wounds. Don't worry about it." I don't think they would accept that. They'd be like, "I want my rights. I want my money back. I'm going to fight you." Well, you think about your wife? Do you really think that she's happy with this? In this culture, where people are not used to this, when people are blindsided by this because they're not in other cultures, some women even assume it's going to happen. Like they have more preparation because, like, yeah, I know everybody in his circle, they all have more than one wife. He's going to get another wife someday. Yeah, I've accepted this. Over here, it always is a total shock. This person is the mother of your children. This is your faithful companion. She's been loyal and honest to you for how many years of marriage. Is it really just to do this to her and be like, "Hey, I'm getting married again. Deal with it." Deal with it? Like, to me, again, that's injustice in and of itself.
I think it's really important thing that you mentioned that, the situation in this country, how people could be blindsided, because you enter into this union and the wife, even if she decided to be a homemaker, that's how many years that she took off from her career, give up earnings just because she want to be a full-time homemaker. If the man had to hire people to do her jobs, how much money he would have paid for that? To cook, to clean, to be a child caregiver, to watch the kids and babysits and all that. How much money would have cost him? So she gave up all that, potential income that she could have been earning directly or indirectly. And if she was working also, that, she put her career on hold, or she took less of a job just to be more at home, or, shared whatever income she was sharing, to be blindsided by that down the road. I think that by itself will create a situation, a predicament that is almost impossible to rectify and to bring justice to.
Yeah, I mean, the world is just more complicated now than it was in the past. When some of these things, when people look to the lives of the Sahaba and whatnot, in that time, people built their own houses. There was no concept of daycare. Today, no one's going to, 99% of people are not going to build their own house. If they're in a situation they don't have a house, they have to worry about who's raising the kids. You have to these things cost money. if you put someone in a situation where now they have to suddenly pay for these things, they have an expectation, they didn't have to do this before, now they do, like, it's blindsiding to people. It can turn their whole life upside down. And why? Because a man wants a second wife? Is that really a valid reason? Just because he wants something? He has a desire? We all have desires. But, I tell people, be patient. You will have whatever you desire in heaven someday, in paradise. You want more than one woman? You'll have all the women that you want there. Women want things they can't have in this world. They want the most expensive things. They'll have it there. But a big aspect of being Muslim is patience. You can't have it all in this world. Even if you want it, you can't have it all.
That's really beautiful. I think being patient is really important. Not chasing our desires and just because we want something, we can't get it. I think understanding the impact of that decision on everybody and understanding that people's feelings are valid. Kids could be impacted. There's real consequence to this decision that it's really important not to take lightly.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen like homes being broken apart because this man insists, I'm going to marry another woman. Everybody's got to deal with it. Wife got to deal with it. Kids got to deal with it. People are mad, angry. Sometimes there's divorce. Sometimes there's just animosity and hatred of what this, what dad put us all through and things like that. And why? Why do this?
Yeah.
Just because you have like the so-called right to do that? Right doesn't make right in a lot of situations. Just because you can do something doesn't mean you should do it. Doesn't mean it's the best thing to do.
It's really important in this time that men have to keep in mind, okay, you lived your life as a Muslim, you're raising your kids in America. You really need to put a lot of focus on raising your kids as Muslim. Mm-hmm. There's so many challenges and, your kids with your current lifestyle already dealing with a lot of things. Imagine losing 50% more of your time or something, and who's going to make sure the next generation of our Muslim youth is being raised well and strong. If men follow, I want to get second, third, fourth wife,
I've heard some people talk about, well, all men cheat. So look, let's just legitimize this. If all men cheat, if all men have a girlfriend on the side, a mistress, whatnot. Oh, I heard my dad was always fooling around, cheating on him. It would have been better if he had a second wife, right? Like, because all men cheat, so at least legitimize it. And there's this. Well, I have to say, like, all men don't cheat, and women shouldn't put up with cheaters. It's just plain and simple, because all men do not cheat, and women shouldn't put up with men who do. Period. There's no need. Well, we have to legitimize it because it's going to happen anyway. No, it's not. A man does not. It's haram to cheat. And you should keep yourself away from the haram and ask Allah for help if that's a struggle for you to do that. You should, confine yourself to what is halal and also the limits that you see in the world around you. You can't have it all.
Absolutely. I think also being a leader of the house and how leading by example, even if a man can get a second wife or the first wife agrees, showing that I'm giving up this because this family means this much to me. Your heart means this much to me. How you feel means this much to me. And I'm giving it fi sabilillah,
Yeah, I mean, isn't that kind of what you signed up for by being in a family? You're willing to give up so much of your time and your money to raise your kids and things like that. I'm sure every parent is like, yeah, I was going to buy a new car for myself, but, we got bills to pay. Kids got to go to school. That car is going to just have to keep driving the old car. It has to wait because it's in the best interest of the family. Like, I can't afford that flashy sports car right now. I gotta pay new clothes for the kids to go to school. They want to play baseball. I gotta buy them, new equipment. So sacrificing for the good of the family is what family is all about. It's what your parents did for you. So, it'd be great to have a couple more wives and whatnot, and have all the enjoyment that comes along with that. But you gotta be willing to sacrifice. What are you gonna put your family through in order to achieve that?
Right. Right. Yeah, I saw a lot of families, unfortunately, this did not work for them, this arrangement, and the kids growing up, although they're brothers and sisters, but the hatred is really hard to overcome. There's a struggle. I mean, we saw, we learn from the stories of the Prophet ﷺ while we're reading Surah Al-Talaq and we read other surah, how even in the house of the Prophet, there's always some, situations where, I wouldn't say always, but there was some situation where the wives did not get along, and that caused a lot of stress. And alhamdulillah, the Prophet ﷺ eventually was able to address it without divorcing his wife, but he was almost very close to divorcing them. So people shouldn't think like it's going to be all good. If the Prophet ﷺ almost divorced his wives because of some of the conflicts, but
Correct.
No one will measure up to his character.
People, a lot of men, unfortunately, they're just thinking about the honeymoon. With it, oh, I finally get this amazing honeymoon with this woman. I have my eye on her or whatever. I see her at the masjid. I met her at my job and whatnot. But what about the next 10, 20, 30 years? The Prophet ﷺ himself had to deal with disputes between the wives. Every single man I've ever met, around the world in different Muslim countries who has more than wives, the wives don't get along a lot of the time. Not like constant fighting, but there's always fights. There's always disputes. But they're in a society that allows for this, that accepts for this. How's it going to be to have these fights between co-wives in a society that's not built for this? It doesn't accept this. That people can't go to get their rights and stuff like that in court. Just endless animosity and hurt feelings and things like that over the situation that people find themselves in. When people, they want some sort of remedy to this situation if they're having marital problems. And I mean, a lot of people don't even want to seek counseling because of the stigma. They don't even want to go to a marriage counselor and have to explain, well, I'm having problems with my co-wife. Like, what do you mean your co-wife? Like, the society is not built for this, and the problems are going to come. Don't think that it's going to be all like, I'm the super Muslim. I'm not going to have any problems with any of my wives. Like, man, you got problems, I'm sure, with your Muslim brother in the masjid. You're not even talking to him. Like, you're angry at your own brother. Like, everybody has problems in their life. Don't think it's not going to be the case with your wives.
Yeah, I think having realistic expectation is really important. So some of the people will say, arguing for this lifestyle, they would say something like, well, this is important to increase the ummah, and we have more, kids being born and by multiple women and have multiple children. One woman is not enough, so let's have 4 women to have more kids and that kind of stuff. But you said something earlier that there's a lot of single men who want to get married, but they can't. So, how about helping those men get married?
Yeah, I mean, if you want to increase the ummah in stability. Like, increase the ummah in stable, healthy marriages that last the test of time. They don't just end up in divorce the next year. So if you really want to increase the ummah, go help a single brother get married. Facilitate you, the man, reach out to this brother in the masjid who's single. Have your wife reach out to some of the sisters and play matchmaker and get a lot of reward from Allah for doing that. Go do dawah. You want to increase the ummah? Go out and do dawah in the streets and tell people who are desperate to find some sort of peace in their life, that are, alcoholics, they're on drugs, their life is a mess, they have no sense of guidance whatsoever. Go out and tell them about Islam. And bring Muslims every day into the masjid to worship Allah, and then help them get married. Increase the ummah in a way that's stable and sustainable long term. Not like, well, I got to have all the kids myself. Like, I'm going to be the super dad and have 100 kids and take care of all. You're going to take care of all of them.
Are you going to shop to all their games?
Yeah, I mean, what's honestly, if that's your intention, what's more practical? You have all the kids, or you have 10 other men who all have a few kids themselves, and they all have their own jobs, and they're all being good dads to all those kids. I mean, like, honestly, that's when you gotta check yourself. Like, is this really about helping the ummah, or is this about helping yourself? Is this about, like, your own desire of, you want more women? Like, to be honest with yourself, because Allah knows what's in your heart.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Serving yourself, not serving the ummah. And I think being honest is really important. And I like that. We have to focus on building strong homes, stable homes. We're dealing with a lot of issues in our community that we're not addressing right now. Young kids, unfortunately, many of them being addicted to pornography, drugs, even alcohol. A lot of issues are coming. So this is a time of, we have to make our families stronger. We have to make our houses stable. We have to come together, not bring more stress and more fitna.
You brought up a good point about pornography. Unfortunately, we live in an overly sexualized culture. And another question for the men out there is, where is this intense desire coming from? Or have you allowed yourself to become over-sexualized by the TV shows you're watching, the music you're listening to, the kind of culture, the haram, non-Muslim lifestyle around you of men, players with all these girls around them and whatnot? Is that where this desire is coming from? It's true, all men have a certain level of desire for women. This is natural. But again, doesn't mean you have to act on it. Doesn't mean you have to act on it right now. There's a reason why Allah says in the Quran that men will be rewarded in heaven with the Hur al-Ain, all these women around them. In heaven, not right now, but there, when they do a good job in this world and get there. Allah is acknowledging that desire is there. But what do you have to do with desires in this world? Act responsibly. That's what you do with the desire in this world. You can't have it all just because you want it. And again, be careful with where these ideas are coming from. Why do you feel the need that you have to have a lot of women around you? Is it really coming from a good place? Is it coming, as I said, from something you saw on TV or some image that you want to present to yourself that's really just your own ego?
Right. And I think at the end of the day, people can debate, is it permissible, it's not permissible, is it sunnah, is it mubah, is it makruh, depending on whatever school of thought
whatever legal ruling
right.
the scholar you trust is saying it is.
Yeah, exactly. But we're going to go back to the verse.
All scholars are in agreement that you have to be just.
Yes. And in this country, it's impossible to be just.
It is. It's quite frankly, it's impossible to be just. And, it's just, people aren't coming from a place of they're trying to establish justice in the world by doing this. They're not, knocking on the door of the orphanage. How can I marry these poor orphans, stuff like that. It's just not happening. So, as they say, check yourself before you wreck yourself. Honestly, a lot of homes are getting destroyed over some of these ideas, or even just, entertaining the idea, bringing it up. Hey, sitting down with your wife, hey, I'm thinking about getting another wife. What do you think about? Just the mere suggestion is extremely hurtful. It's like,
absolutely.
Get another wife. What are you talking? I mean, a lot of people
some people think it's funny and they like to joke about it.
Yeah, it's not fun. I mean, how would you feel if your wife's I'm thinking about maxing the credit card. I'm thinking about it. I didn't do it. I'm thinking about just maxing the. There's a new shop in town. Just open up. Thinking about just blowing our budget. Just go crazy spending spree. What do you think? You think it's a good idea? I'm just thinking about it. Just want to run it past you. Is that cool? Don't even. You wouldn't find that funny. So your wife's not gonna find it funny either. Maybe it's time for number 2. It's maybe it's time for 0.
I think sometimes, people think it's funny and they like to joke around, but they just don't understand how hurtful this is. This is not something to play with, because it triggers a lot of insecurities. Imagine that you live in a house, you're renting this house, and the landlord every day or every other day is I'm thinking about, kicking you out because I'm thinking about, bringing someone else or something like that. You're just going to move out by yourself. You just feel like, I can't do much in this house. I feel like this house do not belong to me anymore, and I need to find something more secure and stable, because this can bring a lot of issues to the relationship, insecurity, and again, destabilizing.
I mean, I'll tell men, imagine if you found out your wife was cheating on you, or your wife came to you and said hey, I think I'm going to enter in one of those weird relationships, I want an open marriage, things like that. The first thing he'll say, well, that's not permissible. we're Muslims here, it's not permissible. It's like, okay, well, is what you're proposing permissible?
In America.
In America? Honestly, is the way you're going to go about it permissible? Not talking about like, meeting some girl at the masjid and chatting her up and talk. Is what you're proposing permissible? Or online?
Yeah,
exactly. Like where do these relationships form? It's not. I said it's not you showing up at the orphanage and asking about how you can take care of these poor girls. It's not you approaching the imam of the masjid and be like, are there any poor sisters out there who can't find a husband? It's not like that. You met someone online. You met someone in the masjid. You met someone at your job. Is that permissible? To have this flirtatious relationship?
When we're ordered to lower our gaze,
when
especially the men.
Yeah, when you're ordered to lower your gaze and not have any relationship with women that are, except for like business relationships, very strict guidelines and conditions with people. So to say like, well, it's not permissible for my wife to have an open marriage or to have another man. Well, like, you're not really acting in a permissible way either. So put yourself in her shoes. You wouldn't accept that from her. Why should she accept it from you?
Exactly. Yeah. It's almost like using Islam as Islam card when it's convenient.
Yeah, exactly, when it's convenient. Playing the Islam card when it's convenient, but not if it's inconvenient for you. You wouldn't want your wife to even joke about something like that. So don't. I mean, be set. Something we talk about like in the clinic is model the behavior you want other people to how you want people to treat you. Model the behavior of how you want your wife to treat you by treating her well. Model the behavior you want your kids to, how you want them to treat you by treating them well. That's what the Prophet ﷺ did. He was so concerned about even things that would make somebody upset. He was so concerned when one of the children from the Sahaba, when his pet bird died, he went to check on him just because he thought he was maybe feeling sad. He talked about the man who didn't pick up and hug and kiss his children. Where is your mercy? He was concerned about even just little tiny things that would make someone feel sad, of avoiding that. So how about something that could feel like it's crushing to someone? It's like breaking their heart apart. It's like, how can you say that that's the sunnah, to put someone in that kind of situation?
Yeah, exactly. And this is something that is really important to keep in mind. And again, Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, yes, married 9 women and visited women, all of the same
evening. Yeah, he would go to all of his wives in one evening, and you're not going to do that. Like, some of these things are, he was a prophet and you're not, and accept your limitations.
Yeah.
Okay, he did things that you will not do. Okay, he fasted more than you will ever fast. He gave more of his time than you will ever give. He did more dhikr than you will ever do. So, imitate things in proportion. There were people who saw him fasting every day, and he said, and they said, we want to do like you do. And he said, you cannot do that because Allah gives me food and drink. You cannot fast all these days in a row like I'm fasting. So he told them, you can't be like me.
Right.
In certain regards.
Right. He
instructed the Muslims, you cannot do the things that he was doing, because he is a prophet and we're not prophets.
Yeah, and with all that, he was the one, of course, taking care of the house and taking, doing a lot of...
Mending his own clothes.
Yeah.
When they're a hole ripped in his garments, he would mend it himself. So, just... We strive to be like him, but we also accept that we are not him. Correct. In the sense that we have high aspirations, but we know our limitations.
I think it's really important, again, to go back to basics. If you have trouble in your marriage, don't run away from that marriage. Ask yourself, what can you do to fix it? Is there anything you can do to fix it? And if you think individually, individual level is hard to do it, why don't you use professional services? Yeah. We're Muslim, we're normal people. We understand people like, there's science and there's, specialities, and why not? Instead of just running away from that relationship.
And, as you brought up, try to fix if you're not happy with your current wife and you think the answer is to get another wife, it's not the answer, okay? Because you haven't fixed the problem. People think like, well, it'll be better in the second marriage. Why? The first marriage did. What evidence do you have that's the case? You obviously things didn't go well in the first marriage. Why do you think that it's going to go well in the second marriage? Obviously, you're not exhibiting the kind of behavior to keep things good in the marriage. You have to work on some skills. You have to learn how to be a better husband. Or, sometimes people just have to get a divorce and then they have to rebuild. And that's okay too. Rather than trying to drag two women along for the ride, this long, painful ride together, some people just have to come to terms with the fact that their first marriage didn't work out. Getting a second wife is not the answer. They either need to fix things with the first marriage or they need to get a divorce and then let everybody get remarried.
Yeah.
And that's just the way it is. Just sometimes they work out, sometimes they don't. But do things in the right way. We're not a quick fix kind of people. We're like a, slow and steady and patient and asking Allah for wisdom kind of, people.
Showing commitment is important. Commitment to this marriage. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala described it in Quran as mithaqun ghalib. So this is a really strong bond and it's a great bond that brings two people together. Not taking that lightly is really important. This is something we have to reflect. How can I grow? How can I be a better person while I'm dealing with this? What can I do to be a better person? While I'm struggling with this. I think my final thought in this matter is, okay, we made a lot of arguments for and against, and I think probably people realize this is a hot topic, and of course we have hot take. But at the end of the day, what I want people to reflect on is, is this, something that legal in this country, and if it's not, can I actually be just while I'm maintaining that lifestyle?
My final thought on the issue is really, I want to start with myself and reminding us all to be grateful for what we have. A lot of times when we're in a situation where we're seeking more and more and more, we're really not being grateful for what we have. Once upon a time, all men out there who are married, you were single. And I'm sure you were very desperate to get married. Single life in Islam is not a fun life. Everybody really wants to be married for a lot of obvious reasons. And I'm sure back then, a lot of you men out there would have made dua to Allah like, oh, if you just let me get married, I'll be grateful forever. Just to have one good wife by my side, it's all I need. And, ask yourself, where did that go? Honestly, where did that go? Isn't it enough to just be grateful to have one good woman who's loyal to you, faithful to you, raises your kids, maybe cooks your dinner, treats you with respect and love and kindness and whatnot? Isn't that enough? Just say, oh Allah, thank you so much for giving me this when so many people don't have it. And I think if we reflect on that, we'll find really that any other desires we want, we should be patient for. And, ask Allah to grant us all of what we want in heaven someday if we live a good life in this world. And until then, be patient and very grateful for how Allah has blessed us.
Very beautiful. I think it's reflecting on gratitude is very good reminder because, as Muslim, we should be grateful. We should always show appreciation to this. So I appreciate the reminder. And also, it's good for people to play the whole tape to the end. It's not just about now with this, hot person that I want to be with or, this midlife crisis that want me to leave this relationship and go to that relationship. It's the whole tape when you're not at your best, when you're, your weakest as an old person. I think, working with people at the end of their life, I think a lot of them have a lot of regrets, but it's too late.
Yeah, we know people, they regret taking a second wife. I'm talking about even in Arabia, in the Arab countries where it's legal. They regret it. Why? Because they drove a wedge between themselves and their first wife. And the first wife is the one that they really fell in love with, really had a deep relationship with, spent all those formative years together. And the second wife, honestly, was someone who looked really good. younger at that time. Again, guy going through midlife crisis, wants to show he's still got it. He wanted a younger woman, almost like they say the trophy wife and things like that. But the trophy wife in his old age doesn't meet his emotional needs. But now the relationship has soured. Maybe the first wife didn't divorce him, but they grew emotionally distant. Yeah. And now he's left as an old man. He's not close to either of his wives anymore, and he's lonely inside a marriage of two. And wallahi, like, I swear to God, this is a real situation. This is not like a myth we've made up. Again, a lot of people who are trying to do this in America, they've never actually met somebody who has more than one wife. And if they've met one, they haven't met 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 10 to really understand the long-term impact of what happens 30, 40 years down the road. And there's a lot of benefit to studying something and really understanding it before you get involved in it.
Yeah, probably you're talking about the, American community, but there's also an immigrant American community who this is more widely practiced within that culture of that immigrant community. So men in that community probably seeing other men doing that all the time in America, but it's within that community. It's like that's the norm and that's what's accepted. It still doesn't make it just. Still doesn't make it legal.
And it still doesn't mean it's going to work out in the long term, right? Because a man who's unhappy with one wife can be unhappy with 2 wives, right, too. And it happens a lot. Right. It happens a lot. It just, but now he's stuck. He's not going to divorce them, but he's also not very happy.
Yeah, I hope men will shift the focus on, to raising those kids that they're having and really devoting their time to bringing up the next Muslim generation to be really competitive in this country.
And really being a good husband to one woman. More often than not in this country, your wife is probably out working. And she's probably getting tired of doing that, as she gets older. Really, if you want to be a great husband, try to find a way to help her work less and be at home more. Or spend more. How much time are you spending with your wife? Now that you've been married for 10 years, do you still take her out on dates? Do you still take her out to dinner? Do you still buy her flowers? Focus on doing these kinds of things. Maintaining the relationship. Exactly. And improving on it and being a really great husband. Someone who, listens to her when she wants to talk and she's having a bad day. Being that shoulder to lean on. Because again, you get out of it what you put into it. And when you're older someday and you just want companionship, you don't care about fancy cars and money and status anymore. You just want a friend so you're not lonely as an old man. You would have gotten out of it what you put into it. If you really made your wife your best friend and someone that you sat and drank tea with every day and had these beautiful conversations, she's going to want to be there for you in that time too, because you'll be each other's friend. But too many men, they say, she's the mother of my children, and they keep her at a distance. And they just want to spend time with their buddies and go out and, have fun, stuff like them. But where will those buddies be when they're 60, 70, 80 years old? Where will they be in that age if they didn't really take care of their kids well? And they didn't really support the mother of those kids emotionally. Will their kids respect them to come around in that age? So you got to think of the big picture here.
Remind me of the story. I can't remember who was the narrator of the story, but he was saying a man came to him complaining about how, his relationship with his wife is not working. They're growing apart. And he told him, then love her. He said, well, I don't love her anymore. I said, well, then love her. Well, yeah, but I felt like I'm falling out of love. I said, well, then love her. Meaning it's time to take these steps, these actions. Love is emotion that gonna come if you start taking these steps. Actually, it's loving her, and taking acts of love with her.
There was a famous pop song on the radio back in the old days here. If you can't be with the one you love, then love the one you're with. Absolutely. Love and emotions, we forget the element of choice in that. I was listening to a motivational video the other day. It said, if you're not happy, choose to be happy. They say fake it till you make it. There's actually a psychological response to, well, I feel miserable, my back hurts and my feet hurt, but I'm going to choose to be happy. I'm going to smile. You actually will feel better just by smiling. Even if you're in pain, that smile will trigger, the endorphins and stuff in your brain, the dopamine and whatnot, and you will start to feel better.
I mean, we do that when we have to show up to a job, when we have to show up for social engagement. Doesn't matter, physical, mental, psychological state. We always put that, good face and show up.
That's true. You put your game face on, as they say. It's time to play the big game. You played sports in high school, whatever. Time for that big game. Doesn't matter if your foot hurts, you got to go out there and win that game. So you fake it until you make it. You do that in front of your boss at work. You're not having a good day. You got a headache, but you have that big meeting. You're going to show up there with a smile on your face because you don't want to let the company down. Well, do the same thing for your family.
Show up for your family.
Show up for your family. I'm not having a great day, and my wife and I have been arguing a lot, and I feel, okay, I'm putting all that behind me. I'm going to go out and buy some flowers and show up and be like, hey, honey, I love you. Let's go out to eat tonight, just me and you. We'll, leave the kids at home, or call the babysitter. And, well, what about all the fights? Forget about all the fights. The rest of your life starts right now.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Just take advantage of that moment. You can change it all with one idea in one moment.
I think being married for 16 years and after having 5 children, I remember a thought crossed my mind last week, and I was like, I remember that day when I felt I married the best man in the world. And
you're sweet, thank you.
I still believe that you're the best man in the world. And I think I maintain that thought. And I truly believe that you are. And I think that doesn't mean we have the perfect relationship. We went through our own issues, struggle, ups and downs. But we always also use the resources that we have, like going to counseling, whether it's marital, whether it's individual, coming from 2 different cultures, 2 different backgrounds, having strong personalities and everything. We had to figure out a way to, maintain that relationship. And I can say that I'm deeply in love with you, just like my first day.
Oh, well, you're very sweet, honey. Thank you. And I feel the same way about you. Even in the worst moments after like a big fight or whatnot, and I say like, oh, why do I put up with this? It's so frustrating. I honestly tell myself I can't imagine a better woman in the world for me. So I already know I have the best woman for me, and I love you very much. But it's been a long road. I mean, again, the Prophet ﷺ himself had fights with his wives, and we're not better than him. And the fights will come, but seek help if you need help. I mean, like, as you said, we've reached out to marriage counselors on more than one occasion and been benefited by that. We've seen individual counselors for individual problems that we have had trouble working on, and it's not fair to make your wife or husband your counselor. If you're dealing with anxiety, if you're dealing with depression, if you're dealing with your own issues, don't expect your wife's going to be able to just cure that for you every day. Seek professional help so that your counselor can deal with your anxiety and you can be your best self in front of your wife, or vice versa. So keep working on yourself. And in working on yourself, also work on your marriage. There's no perfect situation out there, but one thing I can say wholeheartedly, completely, with no doubt, is that every day you're with the same woman is more valuable if you're working on that. It's an investment, like just investing money like in the bank. It just grows, and you get more out of it. So it's the best investment that you can make is in the people around you that you care about, to have something to hold on to that's real as you grow older in this world. So I thank Allah for having a beautiful and wonderful and patient wife with me. And look at your own limitations. We're not perfect. I mean, sometimes when I'll try to do this myself, and I advise other people to do it. When your wife's angry at you, ask yourself why. Don't just blame her. Like, oh, she's always... Don't sit down and ask yourself, why is she angry at me? What did I do? Put yourself in her shoes. Imam Shafi'i, rahimahullah, he once, a student asked him, how did you get such good character? And he said, when people criticized me, I took their criticism seriously. And I worked to improve myself in the area that, that they were criticizing me for. So out of anger, if your wife says to you, hey, why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? You're being lazy. You're being too stingy and whatnot. Don't just dismiss that out of hand. Maybe you are. Maybe you are being too stingy with your money and you don't ever spend any money on anybody, on anything. Maybe you are being lazy. Take yourself to account. That's a big part of our tradition. Honestly, sit down to yourself and look in the mirror and say, am I not pulling my weight around the house? Every day my wife does the dishes. Well, when's it my turn to do the dishes? Maybe she has a point. Maybe I really aren't helping out enough. And if you do that, Allah will give you openings in your marriage because you're starting with yourself first. You're not looking for someone else to fix your problems. You're trying to fix your own problems.
I think this is really important. And again, men and women, everybody has to demonstrate commitment to the relationship. This is mithaq ghalidh. That's what Allah described it in Quran. This is very serious. So you have to show in action, not in words, that you're actually committed to this relationship, committed to this person. And you also, not just committed, you're working every day to better yourself. So the highest place in Jannah is for the person with the best character, right? So you want to do this jihadun nafs. You want to struggle against yourself. And use these challenges in the relationship as a way to be to get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and overcome your own ego, your own pride, but also to have a better character, because when you're triggered at home, this is real. I mean, at your job, your boss or your coworker can trigger you, but you're forced to be professional because you don't want to get fired. Same goes in the street. You don't want to get shot or go to jail. So the same thing at home, that's where you want to respond with a genuine character that helps you be a person of character, a person of integrity, a person who's really patient and, follow the actual sunnah and model Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi
wasallam. And self-improvement is contagious. Now, other people around you are motivated by that too. And remember that, if you look at your wife and you say, oh, she doesn't look very attractive anymore, don't think, well, it's time for me to pick up the hot young thing. Think about, well, what about myself? When's the last time I hit the gym? Because I'm not looking all that great myself. So a good response is, I'm going to not just hit the gym, but I'm going to buy a membership for both of us. We're going to go to the gym together. We both need to get in better shape. We've both kind of let ourselves go over the years. If you think, my wife wears boring clothing, I wish she'd wear something really exciting. How do you dress? You probably got the same old shirt and tie you've been wearing for the last 20 years too. So maybe you all need a fashion overhaul. So let's tell your wife, let's all go out to the mall. Let's all buy a new wardrobe. You get a new dress, I'm going to get a new suit. Hey, honey, how do you like me to dress? This is how I like you to dress. I wish if you'd buy this and that and this other thing to wear. What about me? What do you like to see me wearing? And make it fun. I always say, if you have this dream girl image in your mind of she looks like this and dressed like this, make your wife that dream girl. Yeah. Take her out and shop for the things that you want, and then ask her to do the same. And improve what you already have, starting with yourself.
Absolutely. And again, please do consider counseling. Counseling is really essential. Take advantage of that. One of the things that we've been working at SoundHeart is really focusing on our Muslim community and bringing an Islamic approach to counseling and psychology. So that's something we worked hard, and feel proud of this approach. But again, it's not for everybody. So find what works for you and find ways to help you achieve your goals. And I think stability and commitment is something really important.
Very well said, honey. Yes, definitely out there. It was funny. We said final thoughts. That was half an hour ago. So I guess final thoughts. Yeah. Don't be afraid to ask for help. And this isn't just a big promotion for our own clinic. Asking for help can be calling up your dad or calling up your mom and just say, hey, can you give me a little advice, in this situation?
And if that's something just personal, right? Because, if it's a marital problem, you want them to seek the professional
Yeah, of course. I'm talking about, adopt the mentality that it's okay to ask for help. If you're not sure, how to manage, the family budget or whatever, something that your mom and dad went through, you can reach out to them. But if it's something more serious, if it's something you need professional help, then reach out to get professional help too. If you feel your marriage is not working and you're about to get a divorce, this is when, mom and dad probably aren't the best people to call. Call a trained professional who went to school and studied for years trends in marriages, so they know, is A, B, and C happening? Okay, well, if A, B, and C are happening, you fix it with, E, F, and G. Like, that's how you resolve the problem, because they've been trained in this. They've worked with people before. They know what works and what doesn't work. And they have a lot to offer. Sometimes there's a stigma around marriage counseling or reaching out for counseling amongst Muslims. They think it's like a foreign concept. Well, we're Muslim and we're doing it, and we've been on both ends of the equation, and it helps. Just like, you wouldn't fix your car yourself if you didn't know what you were doing. You definitely would not perform surgery on your family members if you're not a surgeon. So, people go to school and get training for this stuff to help, and counselors do the same thing.
Yeah. Find someone professional, someone who's trained, someone who's licensed and has the ethical, training and commitment to make sure to help you, but don't try to tread in deep water if you're not, strong swimmer.
Yeah, well said. Okay, well, we ask Allah to bless all the Muslims out there, the single ones trying to get married, the married ones trying to stay married, and, the whole ummah, all of us all together. Ask Allah to bless us all and to help us in this journey throughout our lives.
And may Allah forgive us for any things we said wrong. And if we said anything wrong, that's from the shaitan and from ourselves. And said anything right, that's from the blessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Subhanak Allahumma wa bihamdik. Ashhadu anna la ilaha illa ant. Astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.